Thanks for tuning in to this episode of I Have Something to Say, where subject matter experts are unafraid and unapologetic about sharing their perspectives regarding issues that impact our lives. They speak up because basically they give a shit. So if you're tired of canned answers and want to finally hear real people cut through the BS and talk about real issues, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Samí Haiman-Marrero from Urbander, and behind our mixer is our producer, Chris Majoka from You Do You.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. To invite and to have invited and for her to have accepted our invitation, my good friend, Tiffany Osborne. Hi, Tiffany. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I wanted to get you on the podcast because we've seen how tens of millions of Americans, and actually people across the world, right, have lost their jobs because of the pandemic. And just a little background on you. Okay, you and I have something in common, which is that we both went to college and studied communications. That was our BA, right? You in Northern Kentucky University and me at the University of Puerto Rico. But then our lives, kind of took a similar path in terms of entering into the world of workforce development. Me not so long ago, just a few years ago. But you've been doing this for close to a decade now, if not a little longer. And so just wanted to bring you on board to share with us, some tips on how to navigate unemployment, and reentry into the workforce. Just a little bit of background. You've been helping create from scratch programming to help people and companies meet. So companies that need workforce and new talent find the right people to fit those positions. And you have also been very, very involved in also serving distressed communities, folks that, are marginalized or don't have equal access to good employment opportunities, and help them basically elevate their game. So that way they can, vie for those opportunities and progress in their careers, including reentry of people that have been incarcerated into the workforce as well when they're finally, free, and come out of incarceration. And so I'm like wowed by you from the moment we met up in Madison, Florida, population 9,000, and here we are, in sunny Orlando, meeting the challenges, of this growing workforce and this diverse workforce too. And so welcome. Your company's Tiffany Lynn. And I'm just tickled pink, that you're now closer, now you were in Tallahassee, that now you're closer so we can collaborate and really tap into, your coaching skills, your mentorship skills, your workforce development skills, all of that stuff. But talk to me. When you see these millions of people, now being unemployed, what's your first reaction or ideas in terms of the go-to things to do to make sure that, they understand that it's going to be okay?
Right. So I think the first thought is it's almost unimaginable to wrap your brain around, where we are. But I think that there's definitely light at the end of the tunnel. We were growing the need, the workforce challenges that we had previously. We could not meet the demand. We couldn't get enough people with the right talent into the right jobs or connected.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I think that as scary as this is, it's a time to say, let's hit reset for the businesses as well as for the individuals who are being displaced, unfortunately, to kind of say, okay, what skills do I have? What am I passionate about? And how can I tie that into either furthering my career where I'm at or into maybe a new career? So I think that even though we're seeing unprecedented times, we were not able to keep up with the demand. The jobs and the growth that we were seeing was just the gap was almost impossible to reach. And so again, I think that, yes, we have people who are in transition who are being temporarily and permanently dislocated due to this pandemic, but we're going to have, we already have positions and businesses that are actively hiring, but we're going to have even more. We will see, as we transition into whatever the new normal, we'll see new jobs being created, and again, we'll see that growth. So I think that as awful as it's been and as many people have been affected, there's opportunity to move forward for everyone.
Right.
And for some, like I said, to transition into new roles. So
Yeah, totally. And so when you mentioned that there was a gap in terms of talent meeting the demands of different industries before the pandemic, that's very interesting.
yeah.
In what specific areas? So I mean, that'd be interesting to learn.
Yeah. So, and because I'm in Florida, I'm going to speak mostly to Florida, but nationally, and every region throughout the state, through all of the states, there's a demand based on specific industries. And I would say almost across the board, healthcare is in demand. Don't have enough people with, nurses and with, the more skilled technical positions, but also in construction and advanced manufacturing, IT, really across the board. And in all of those industries, and there are others, but those are just the top that kind of come to mind across the country and probably every region. And then there are positions, in addition to the growth in the current positions and the current industries, there are positions that are being created that we don't even necessarily know yet what that will look like.
Yeah. Like in automation and stuff like that, that is just so sci-fi almost, like, that we can't even understand yet what those day-to-day tasks or skill sets look like. Yeah.
Right. Or how to train for them. And that's why it's really important for businesses to be connected with workforce partners, as well as higher education partners, so that we can work together to say, okay, how do we create these on-the-job type training opportunities or curriculum? And even I'll go as far to say within the K through 12 system, so that we can start introducing these young people to pathways, to career pathways.
That's interesting, because the thing is, like, we went to college and studied communications, and then there's obviously healthcare. Those are already pathways in academia that you can pursue because they're very well established. Law, engineering, I mean, but these jobs of tomorrow, there's no, do you find that there's value in getting certifications? Like for example, you and I, if we decide tomorrow to get into IT or something, I mean, we're not going to go back. Well, at least I'm not. Not that crazy. Go back and do a whole other, 4 years. Is there value in finding certification programs and beefing up your skill sets through other avenues?
Absolutely. I think that's a great point. So yes, I think that we are in a time where businesses realize the value of work experience. And I think that it's not the same. Like, we were instilled, and it's been previously, go to college, get a 4-year degree. It doesn't matter what's in, just do it. And I would argue now that there are different pathways, and I think different credentials, certification, and right now is actually a great opportunity to sharpen your skills. A lot of the higher education institutions, as well as the local workforce systems, are providing free training or have funding for training so you can get a short-term credential. That's really the way that we need to be thinking. How do we get people back to work, get them, into a new skill, or sharpen their current skills, in a short-term training, a couple weeks, to maybe like 12, 18 months, right?
Yeah.
So that back into the workforce, or working while they're earning a certification, or a credential. And some of those you can do online. Right now, I think also through this shift, we've realized all the physical spaces, work
that we don't necessarily, we don't necessarily have to be face to face.
Right. Yeah. So lots of innovation is happening as we're, going through this together.
Yeah, totally. And I think that also that might be something that is an option too, in terms of, like, I've heard some companies, I can't remember which one it was, Twitter. Twitter just announced last week that they're going to give their employees the option of working from home moving forward if they want to, and so then I think that for a lot of parents that are now, at home with their kids, considering not sending them back to school, at least not yet, right, in the upcoming school year, to explore, getting trained and paid while you're getting trained remotely, to fulfill those remote jobs or, positions that moving forward might have the option of you working from home. That's kind of cool, but how do you find out who's doing what? I guess it's all right now in flux. So there's a lot of, asking questions and inquiries and research that goes behind, trying to figure out what your next step is, no?
Right. And to your point, there are a lot of businesses, and they should be, who are taking a step back through this time to say, it's one of the two parts. So one is, it's not just about attracting the right talent, but it's about retaining the right talent. And in order to do that, businesses should really be looking at things like work-life balance, and can we work remotely, or are we able to offer, unlimited PTO? I mean, they're doing some really creative things, because I've read several articles that they've seen through the pandemic increase in workday productivity. So it's and then there's a cost savings on the other side of that because they're not in the physical space. So I think as far as, so I will give you a couple resources just here in Orlando, the different chambers, OEP, Orlando Economic Partnership, as well as Career Source Central Florida. They have resources connecting you directly if you're looking for these types of jobs, trying to make that connection, and also just different resources. So those would be great places to kind of start looking for ways to connect with different businesses that are hiring, whether it be remotely. And I know those are also questions that we're thinking about as we're, interviewing. What precautions and what do you have in place as we are going back into the office, for safety?
Yeah, totally. So a lot of interviewing now for new jobs is happening like this, right? Remotely and on camera. And so I have a lot of questions regarding that because I haven't interviewed in like a gazillion years. I mean, the last time I had an interview, like a legitimate interview for employment, I mean, I guess when you meet a new client and you're pitching for new business, that could technically be, considered an interview, right? But I mean, like in terms of like a corporation or a company, looking to hire. So what's okay to ask? Like what is it okay to ask now in this, new normal or even remotely? I think a lot gets lost in translation if you're not in front of because you can't really feel, their vibe and their body language and all of that, So what are things to avoid and what are things to, definitely, incorporate in those online interviews?
Sure. So I think it really starts with the individual. Before they even start applying or get ready for the interview, they need to think about what's really important to them, like what they're looking for in their next job or their next career move, because that's going to determine really the line of questions. But I would say research as much of the company and the specific position prior to the interview. You don't ever want to ask a question that you could find on the internet, like when were you found, or what do you do, or anything, like I said, if you can do a Google search and find it, not a good question. I think questions you should be asked. Oh, sorry, I'll stay with what shouldn't you. Other questions you shouldn't ask. You shouldn't ask about salary. There are things you can do prior to kind of researching and get a ballpark figure to make sure it's within range. Benefits questions, all of those questions should not be asked, especially in the first interview. Now, if the employer asks you those questions and brings that discussion up, then that's a different story, but you shouldn't be asking those questions. You should really spend time getting to know the person and the culture for the company and whatever other, bits of information are going to be important to you. So some good questions might be, what are your top 3 qualities for this individual or for this, who you're looking for? Or why do you love your position? Why do you love working for this? Because those kinds of questions are really going to help get past that filter of like the scripted Q&A and really have a discussion. You should be going into the interview looking at, I want to know if this is a good fit both ways. We can pretend just to get me the job, but then
right.
You. So really treat it that way, is getting to know and letting them see pieces of you.
That's awesome. Yeah. I never thought of that, of putting the person on the spot and saying, why do you love this job? I'm going to tell you something. If the first reaction is a stank face, like, yeah, run for the hills.
Right.
Run for the hills, right? It would be like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, that kind of touched the soft spot, right? Yeah.
Right.
And so that's really smart. Thanks for that. And so okay, good. So those are good things to keep in mind. Be prepared, do your research, don't talk about money, get to know the person and ask questions that are more open and that let them are intended to let everybody's guard go down just a little bit. Yeah, right. Okay, cool. Now, another question. Do these types of resources exist in most states, like the workforce? Because when I first moved here to Florida, I didn't know about Workforce Florida or a Career Source or all of these different organizations. It wasn't until I was in need of a job, that you Google and you find these resources, but a lot of people just aren't aware or have seen it but don't. So would it be, it's just as easy as going on and saying, for example, you're from Northern Kentucky, right? Could see Workforce Kentucky, right? And then it would, or what kind of search do you go about doing to find
That's a question. So working in different states for different workforce boards and different workforce systems, all different. So it would be great. And even sometimes within the state, they have different names. So like, for instance, in Kentucky, it's the Kentucky Career Center. The easiest way probably, but yes, to answer your question, every state has a workforce development system, and within the state there are several workforce boards that are unique to your region. Okay. So I would go, depending on which state I'm in, and again, there's no uniform name, but unemployment oftentimes is a good pathway. If you Google your unemployment within your state, that will be a good way to get connected to the workforce board in your state. Because like I said, I don't know every state. And Florida, Career Source Florida, and then within each of the different regions, there's a different title based on where you live. Another great way to find your workforce system is Googling your local chamber. So chamber is a great resource or connection to get access to jobs and connections to your workforce board. Or your career centers. That's probably the best term. If you Google local career center and then also the federal system, and now I'm blanking, which is awful as long as I've worked in this field. But I'll do a Google search in just a second so I can give you the right terms. But it's like your one stop of America that will help connect you with your local one stop.
Right. So it's like the DEO, right? The Department of Economic Opportunity. Would that be it? Yeah. Or
link here in Florida, but
Okay.
it's not called that in every state. Like in Kentucky, it's the workforce cabinet. That's why,
Okay, but yeah. So, but if you're unemployed and looking for work, I mean, you can ask there. What's the local workforce
yeah,
board? Yeah, and that's
find it out.
and you can
Absolutely.
find it online too. Okay, cool. No, that's important because again, people just don't know, and so then they lose their job, and they're like, "Holy cow! Now what?" There aren't any resources, but there are, and some are better than others. But
Right.
at least it's a starting point. And what do you think about? Because this is what I've recommended, friends and family and people that we work with in the community. I tell them, if you wanna get start on a good career path, or you're stuck in, minimum wage employment, and you're raising kids, and you're like, how in the world am I gonna go back to school and start something new or whatever? I've always told them, listen, identify the big companies like in our region, right? We have Siemens, we have, so that we have everything that has to do with simulation and stuff. We have a lot of universities like Valencia and University of Central Florida and Seminole College and so a lot of academic institutions. We have also a lot of hospital networks. And so then I tell them, you have to remember that just because it's healthcare, it doesn't mean that you have to be a doctor or nurse or a radiologist. They need accountants, they need marketing people, they need people that work in environmental services. Go to their web pages, find the top 10 companies in your region that have good benefits, competitive salaries, opportunities for growth, right? Because they have a lot of departments, so you can like wiggle your way here, wiggle your way there. Once you're in, you can then progress in your career. And I always tell them, look for on the bottom of most of these websites, you see a tab that says careers.
Right.
Align, find jobs that you say, oh, I could do that.
Right.
Adjust your resume so that way it aligns with that. Just get in,
Right.
just get in. And then once you're in, it's on you, like you need to then network and make, I mean, do you feel that, I mean, because I just say that, because it makes sense to me. And I know a couple of people that have done that, and because it just makes sense. But have you seen that to be a good way to also land that your dream job basically?
Right. Yeah, no, I think absolutely. I think that there are a lot of tools. So I would use as many resources as I could in the job search because it is a full-time job and it does take time. So I
Hmm.
would say exactly like you said, doing research in your community, in the industries, and learning about those companies because that's going to help you in the interview. And then also using search engines like Indeed or LinkedIn is a great
Yeah.
networking
Hmm.
interview or way to connect with jobs as well. And then also your workforce systems in your state, they're going to have job boards as well,
Hmm.
and direct connection with those employers, so they could probably help make the connection easier than you doing it on your own. But I
Hmm.
think, and then even depending on what industry you're looking, there are headhunters. Some of the staffing or the recruiting firms would be a better term. That are going to also be good resources to kind of help connect you with the different positions that are available.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Okay, good. So I'm not talking caca. I'm
Oh, right.
yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, because that I think that's important. I feel bad for students that just came out of high school, and they're or college, that they're, in that transition mode because it's like, oh my God, I'm ready to go to college. I have to work, I have to do something because I need to save up for for meals, for a car, for whatever it is. And then college students that are recent grads too. I mean, it sucks, if you haven't had an internship, how it was already rough for them. Let's just say that as it was, before the pandemic. And so then what could you recommend, college students that may be like, I don't even have work experience yet, I have my degree, but what can I do to get in and do something?
Sure. So there are businesses that are still actively hiring, and not just for full-time or part-time positions, but for internships.
Mm-hmm.
There are virtual internships being offered as well. And I know with Career Source Central Florida, they are doing all of their youth summer internships virtually. So they're opportunities. So I would say, especially for a college student or even a high school graduate, to do the same thing, like you said, doing research, looking to see what companies are offering either a virtual internship or, I don't want to say a regular internship, but a typical internship, as we have in the past. But there are still those opportunities available, but I think that that's really important. If you haven't done an internship, to kind of get your feet wet and get a feel for industries that might be a good fit for you. And I think most businesses, even if they don't have an internship per se, if you find that you want to work with and you call them and you say, I'm really interested in learning more. Can I do a job shadow, or can I, spend a couple weeks just learning more? Even if they don't have an opportunity, they're likely to create one for you. Everybody's doing that, but they're not, because I think we're in a world where information comes to us. So less and less are we seeking information. So the people who seek information, that sets you apart.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, because we're like constantly bombarded. So we're like, we take like a passive approach to this. Yeah. So that's interesting. So it's like always learn, always find opportunities, always dig deeper. And you said before that looking for work, is work. Yeah, it's a full-time job. It is. Yeah. And there's always too the pathway to entrepreneurship.
Right.
That's another thing. Yeah. Do these workforce development boards also offer support to people that are looking to start their own businesses?
Another great question. So what's unique, and the reason there are regional or local workforce boards, is because the offerings that they have for the programs are really based on the need in their community. So in some communities, they're going to have opportunities to really support entrepreneurs, where some, they may not be the direct resource, but they're going to have connections for you, either to your small business association or your small business council. There are also your chambers is going to be another great resource. And I want to say in Florida, there's a virtual entrepreneur academy that is for you as well.
Oh, really? I didn't know. I learned something new today. Really?
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay, good.
Yeah.
What was that?
It's right here in Orlando.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. You see, you learn something new every day. Okay, good. That's good to know. Okay, you send me the link later on so I can forward it to a couple of people. Okay, good. That's awesome. So so the resources are there. You just have to, dig a little deeper. And I think one of the biggest things though is fear, and lack of it's just anxiety and fear. Sometimes that whatever, things that you've gone through, or if it's something new and you don't feel, as like your self-esteem about that particular, like speaking in public, for example, or what have you, just trying a new career. I think that the first thing for many people to overcome, and I know from experience too, is fear. Right? It's of the unknown, of what the outcomes might be, of who you might bump into, or how people might react, right, to this change too, because there are a lot of haters out there too. And so it's so how do you navigate that, from a professional standpoint, in terms of working out the kinks of convincing your family or your spouse that this is something you really want to do, and and getting that support that you need.
So I think that you're going to be your biggest supporter, because at the end of the day, what's going to be best for you as you're transitioning. I think for people who are, because there's a difference, there are some people who are deciding to make a transition, and then there are some people who maybe didn't make the decision. And so initially it feels like you've been rejected. What am I going to do now? This happened to me. And I think really the perspective is what's going to help you. So I am a true believer of every job I've ever done or every job I've ever had, no matter the industry, has given me experience and valuable skills that will serve me well in positions throughout my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that every job that someone's done is preparing them for their next role, or for maybe even a higher purpose. Maybe it's not work related. So keeping that mindset and realizing that everyone's probably not going to see the vision that you have, especially if you're changing your maybe your industry. You've done one thing for a long time, but I think that fear will kill more dreams than faith ever will. So I think just believing in yourself, finding a good support system or network of peers to kind of help you along the way. And I think, online there are a lot of even virtual kind of support systems and ways to network and connect. So I think just believing in yourself, taking the time to say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay too. Because you reinvent yourself as many times as you need to, or try new things as much as you can. I think, just getting the exposure to the different career pathways or different industries is going to help you, to kind of make that decision. But at the end of the day, you're the one that has to be okay with it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know. Yeah. I know it's just hard sometimes because if you can't find that support, but you're right, you can find peers that align with you, and online it's just so easy to find people, and make sure that you find a cheerleader somewhere who'll believe in you.
Especially now, there are resources that we have available because mental health is so important. So there are resources right now that we wouldn't have had even a month ago that are free resources. So, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think people are making sure that they're, or at least the professionals, right, that they're following guidelines and best practices. And you can tell. So if you're finding help and something, I always say that it's your head, heart, and gut,
Yeah.
So of course it has to make sense, it has to make you feel good, but that gut never lies. So if it sounds fishy or it looks fishy or, just follow that internal, barometer that most of us do have, to say, wait a second, let me, find another resource or go in another direction. Very cool. And so what are you looking forward to? And the impact that you're looking to do, because given your expertise, you must be like, oh my goodness, I can do this. I can help these people like that, so in your, as you continue to grow your business, what are the areas that you see that you can, focus on and really make a difference?
Yeah. So I am really excited to be able to be involved, really still in workforce, but also more on the community development side. So working with individuals who are coming, have additional barriers maybe to employment or entrepreneurship or whatever that looks like. So helping to coach and support and create just a pathway for them. But then also working with the businesses to kind of say, okay, what are we doing now that maybe we shouldn't be doing, or what aren't we doing that we should be doing? I think on either side, I'm excited about kind of cutting the fat and saying, are we the best version of ourselves? Because I feel like now is really the opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
To develop what it could look like. Because I think as we're going back into, our daily lives, we don't know what that's going to look like. I think we're in a time that is, like it's never been before. So I'm just really excited about laying the groundwork and developing what that looks like. And then also just having the opportunity to work on, I think we will continue to see more grants throughout the country for new opportunities, new initiatives. So I'm really excited to be a part of that in some
Yeah,
capacity.
the new trends, exactly, like in automation and all of those new, positions or job opportunities that are brewing that we can't even wrap our heads around yet, but that just being part of that. That's really cool. I have to ask you, just a couple of more things. What do you think about, because I was raised to just work. Especially when you're starting, you can't get picky. You just have to, if you get a job offer, just take, I mean, of course, if it's legal and all of that, but just take it, just do what you need to do. And so I've been kind of like wired to never say no, almost to a fault. Cause then sometimes like, oh, Lord have mercy, I'm exhausted, but that's just how my family at least rolls, right? And so what do you think about that? That it, I mean, okay, so it's like this opportunity came up, it might not be my jam, but it could get me some income. It's a good opportunity. Again, it might not align fully with what I'm
Right.
interested in doing. So what do you say, about what do you think about that?
So I think that as long as I feel like I can add value, I think when opportunities are presented, just being mindful of how can I best serve in this capacity, right? And just keeping that mindset. So I think absolutely. I know for myself, I'm open to opportunities, like, regardless, just as long as I feel like I can add value to this place or the space.
Yeah.
I think that there's just, like I said, valuable experience from everything that we do.
Now, and then now this is kind of like a icky situation, but I know also about a lot of employers that will remain, unnamed right now, because we want to be nice, or maybe not. But anyway, that have people on their teams, and I know this from, migrant communities, for example, that come from other countries, and they're here and they're documented the whole thing, and they're hired, and they're part of the fabric of American society, right? They've been living here for years, but back in their countries, they were lawyers and doctors and teachers and master carpenters, and like all of these wonderful skills, that they bring with them here, but they're stuck working like here in Orlando at one of the parks, which is how do you say? I'm not knocking work is, but it's not their area of expertise. And so you might have a vet that's working in Animal Kingdom, but he's not a vet here, or that works in one of the parks and would like to work, for example, in, more of an animal or a zoo park, to be closer, but these opportunities aren't provided to them. I've always said that why don't these big companies, okay, like Disney and Universal and Legoland and all of the, do some kind of like within, I know that they get the resumes and stuff, but really dig deep and ask what other skill sets do you have, and then help these people, like you said, feel a sense of purpose, that they add value and really tap into their passion points. Is
Right.
that something that's done, or are those types of discussions that workforce boards have with the employers?
I think that there's definitely a gap there.
Mm,
So yes, that is something that we're seeing and at all levels. And I think that there's a disconnect. I don't know of, I wish I had a nonprofit off the top of my head. I know that various nonprofits and workforce boards dabble, in helping to, like, okay, let's look at your resume and your skill set, and then how do we market that for these different positions. But if in the case that the business is requiring, let's just say, your master's degree in this, and they're not recognizing your degree or even your experience from, a different country, then maybe that's not the right business for you. And there are definitely businesses that are opening up those really strict requirements to say it has to look like this because they understand the value of experience.
yeah.
But absolutely, working with, a coach, or either, paid or through your workforce system, to say, how can you help me to make the connection so that I can get back into my career that I was, previously in. And there, sometimes it is going to be, let's get a job within the company where I know I can, once I get my foot in that door, I can move up, but really trying to keep it in line. Maybe it's not the exact job, but within the industry. So that
Right.
we can make that, could be another pathway for them.
Yeah, totally. Because right now, like, for example, I'm doing leadership coaching, and one of the fellows that I'm working with, he's currently working for Walmart in stocking merchandise and stuff like that. And when I got to know him, we've become friends now, right? He's from Venezuela, and with the problems over there, so he's here, seeking asylum and all of that with his family. And he's frustrated, because he's learning the language, but it takes an adult at least 4 years to like fully command, a language that they're starting to learn from scratch. But when I learned of his experience, I'm like, what? You have 18 years of experience in transport. You should be working like in Tampa Bay, or like in a big, or with a big transport. I mean, this guy knows about logistics and transportation and like big networks. I mean, Venezuela is a big country, and he
Right.
covered like a big region. And so we got talking, and he worked in publishing. So like transporting the big the directories, the phone books, and that kind of print materials. And I'm like, you have so much experience. And of course, because I speak Spanish, we got into the thick of exactly
Right.
what he was doing. And I'm like, you should be. So anyway, so I'm helping him out, and I have connected him with the workforce board, so he already uploaded his resume to Employ Florida and stuff like that. But that's the thing, they can easily, just to be able to put food on the table, get stuck in this job that is not fulfilling, and it breaks my heart, Yeah.
Does he? Will you share his resume with me? I'd be curious just to know if he is not getting, if he's applying for positions in his previous industry and he's just not getting calls, or if he's interviewing, because there could be some cultural questions that we can kind of help. But if he's not even getting an interview, then maybe, that's something that I do.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, that's awesome. And doing mock interviews is important too, right? Yeah. So practicing with somebody that you trust and that can make those hard questions is key too, to be able to land, the job that you want, correct?
I totally agree with that. And not even just someone that you trust, but someone that knows, really can read body language, those kind of cultural cues, because all of those things impact. Like, we don't know. It's funny. Years ago, when I started doing mock interviews, you don't know how you look on camera. And so we would actually conduct the mock interviews on camera so that the person could see their body language, their facial expressions, and kind of tweak them, that way, really in an interview, you're selling yourself. And that's why I think it's important to go about it as a discussion, because it takes some of the pressure off, because when we're nervous, we're not ourselves.
Right.
They miss out on that. But yeah, I think absolutely, especially if you're interviewing and you're not getting good feedback or you're not getting the job. I would say if you haven't done a mock interview, that's absolutely something you need to do with a coach or with your local workforce system. They have resources with it as well.
To be able to do that. And then last, because I could go on asking questions, resume. The resume, the first, if it's a position that is looking for, talent in specific areas, that first review is done by a machine, right?
Well, depending on the company. So yeah, either if it's automation, the artificial intelligence, or if it's an HR person, I would say 15 to 30 seconds maximum is all that they're doing. So scanning. So to your point, if it's the artificial intelligence, they're looking for keywords that are going to be tied directly to that job or that description.
Yeah.
And then if it's a person, then they need to see something that really stands out at them. So if you have, I hate to use the word data, but data, so like numbers, if you're in sales or, different things to show what you've done, that kind of going to leap off of the page.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, like if it's increase in percentages or whatever in terms of sales or, yeah, impact. Yeah. Okay. Okay, good. So that's a trick. That's a hint. Yes.
Yes.
To include data points. What else?
Yeah.
Keywords that match with the job description that you want,
Yes.
right? Okay.
Yes. And skills from those job descriptions, because
Okay.
sometimes it doesn't necessarily have it like spelled out, but there are certain keywords that are going to align with the position. So making sure that you're tying them together. And then I would be making sure that it's clean, proofing it for errors. A lot of people don't, do a simple spell check.
Yeah.
And then I would say, like I can help with resume writing or reviewing, but if you don't have a coach, you're not working, with the workforce system, to have someone that you trust to review your resume and just to kind of make edits. And it should really be tailored to the position and to the company, not just the cover letter, but your actual resume where you can.
Yeah.
Another big one, I'm just thinking, a lot of times people don't use past tense. So all of their jobs have present tense. You need to make sure you're updating that, because that is something people notice. But
that is past tense. Past tense, like you already did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. A lot of just businesses that I've worked with through the years, they say people are automatically discounted because of spelling errors, or because it's not up to date information.
Okay.
About that are discounting.
And that's a shame also if it's done, if that first, let's say for example there is position A and you get 500 resumes, like who's really going to sit there and review 500 resumes, right? So they do that first sweep, and say, okay, we're going to pick the top 30 candidates, but it's not because of their skill sets, their knowledge, their preparation, and their experience. It's really because they match, because the machine says, right? Based on the data points they offered, the past tense, the typos, all of this stuff, these are your top 30. These are the people you have to interview. And then it leaves out a whole bunch of other people that could probably do a much better job, right? But they just didn't, fit the bill because of these little things, mistakes, or things that could have been easily corrected, right? Yeah.
And to your point, another thing is, jobs were already getting a large, candidate pool, but now it's been probably tripled or quadrupled.
Yeah.
People work. So find a way, if you can find who the job poster is, who the HR person is, in addition to applying through their system, if you're able to get that resume to them via email, and sometimes that's really hard to find access, but if you can, and just say, hey, I've applied for this position. I'm, really excited to learn more. Just wanted to make sure you received my resume and cover letter. That might be another way to set yourself apart, because to your point, sometimes you're not even getting in front of the HR person because you're being stopped by the system.
Yeah. So you have to be the squeaky wheel so you can get the oil, right? Yeah.
And another great way, I think, to connect is through your network. So do you know works at the company or works in the industry, have that conversation and talk to them, because I would say most positions I've had have been through a connection that I've had because I had a relationship. I think that's another way.
That's fantastic. Well, listen, Tiffany, I'm so glad that we did this, because I think it's timely, it's relevant, and it's helpful, and I know that you're up to your eyeballs busy. We all are. But that you carve time out to, to give us all of this information is really awesome. And I'm thankful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and glad to be a part of it. I think it's really important to help however we can. So.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
This concludes this episode of I Have Something to Say. We want to thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. We're on Spotify and iTunes as well. There's more to come next week. And remember, if you have something to say, it's time to speak up.